Hi there, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, a little hiccup there with the opening graphic, but that's okay. Thank you for being here. Today's Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. I'm Trey Crowder. That's Mark Agee. What's up, Mark?
What's up, Trey? So a little break. Like, can I do a little breaking news alert? Can
I
you do a
would love
song?
some breaking news. Yeah. Wait, that's ESPN. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah,
breaking news.
unfortunately. So kind of a bit of a dumbass update for you to it. One of our favorite congresswomen, Lauren Boebert, who we talked about last week, trying to bring
Mm-hmm.
her gun to the Capitol, but not really. She was lying about it, pretending to for the content. But she apparently they put in new metal detectors after the coup, and she set off the metal detector and wouldn't. And currently is in a standoff, or was a few minutes ago, with the Capitol Police because she won't let them search her bag after setting off the metal detector. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah. Wonder what that could be. What she's hiding in her bag. Uh, that would set off the metal detector. The lady who made her bones proudly proclaiming she was going to carry her gun to Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah, you called it another update. Not an update, hell, I'm sure all of y'all have seen it by now, but we wanted to give a little shout out to senior Georgia correspondent and longtime good buddy Corey Forrester on his recent viral success. If you guys haven't seen it, he put out a rant, a very impassioned, genuine, authentic, spur of the moment rant about the coup last week, and that shit has taken plumb smooth off. And Corey is on his way to the stratosphere. And I just want everybody to know I take a lot of pride in being the person who discovered Corey Forrester. It's a real high point for me. We're just so proud of the boy. He's done such a good job.
Yeah. He's he was
I
on
thought you were going to leave it at that. Yeah, good for Corey.
he was on CNN International, and he got his stuff reposted by Two Chains and
Yes.
Stephen King, which is a hell of a pair there.
Yeah, man. That's
Yeah.
when you're really doing it then. Yeah, on different you got Stephen King over here, Two Chains over here, both posting your shit. You've
Yeah.
really done something. So yes, good for Corey.
He got
Um,
shouted out by Lucy Lawless, Xena Warrior Princess, who I've had a crush on since I was like 11 years old. So that's awesome.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of great shout outs. But hey, we got a show to do, so let's do it. Uh, with us as always, producer Matt behind the scenes doing his thing. This is Evening Skews. Got a good show for you tonight. A lot of coup talk still. A lot of stuff. How often do we have a coup? You know what I mean? So there's a lot to still unpack there.
I
A
mean,
lot of
for Skews content wise, not nearly enough. It's been
right. Yeah, we need more. We need more coups for the skews. But yeah, what's happened since? What have been the consequences? What are we looking at? Are we done with coups? Are more coups on the horizon? Well, we'll see what we think about it a little bit later. Also, mid show point, we're going to be talking with noted American writer, journalist, and activist Silas House, Kentucky's own. Looking forward to that. First of all, as always, we begin with the Daily Dumbass. Now, we had a little trouble with our initiating graphic up top, so we're not going to do the dumbass graphic. We're just going to do the dumbass clip. That's the plan. So, tonight's dumbass is Staten Island politician Letitia Remoro, who participated in a anti-lockdown protest in front of a famous Staten Island bar that had been forced to close because of COVID restrictions. And in doing so, she made a video for the internet in which she made what she now claims was simply a slip of the tongue made in the heat of the moment. And I gotta say, as far as those go, this one is truly unfortunate. Matt, if you've got the clip, play it for everybody.
With Staten Island to stand up for our rights. The right to pay taxes so that we can pay the salaries of these good men and women who, yes, are only doing their job, but not for nothing. Sometimes you gotta say, Heil Hitler, not a good idea to send me here.
Okay, Mark, as our longtime viewers know, I've said a lot of really dumb shit in the heat of the moment without meaning to, things that I later regretted. I've never howled Hitler, though. Matter of fact, I generally try to stay away from hiling just in general. I don't do a lot of hiling, but let alone hiling Hitler. That's an odd slip of the tongue to make, right? But she had an explanation for it.
Yeah, slip of the tongue, right? So you know how it goes. You mean to say Gesundheit, and you accidentally say "How Hitler." She apparently she corrected herself. She said she said "How Hitler" when what she meant to say was "Mein Führer." So
Right.
sure that makes it
So
much
that's better. You can understand that. Mein Führer, that's no problem. No problem. Heil
Yeah.
Hitler, though, the issue. I don't know. I mean, again, everybody has said something that, like, as it's coming out of your mouth, you're like, oh no, pull that back. But when those words are Heil Hitler, I don't know how you don't cut that off. You know what I mean? Like, if it really is, you get into it, you're like, you got to say, hi, police officers, thank you for doing your job, and just fuck the rest of it up and go on from there. You don't finish Heil Hitler.
It was. I think it would have been like I would have gotten through a Heil hit and was said like Hilton or something, and act like
Right? Yeah.
But the thing amazing about it was.
Okay, so that was for the breaking news way earlier. Again, having some technical issues, but we're working through it, and it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be just fine. So we apologize for that, but we're going to go forward. What were you saying, Mark?
There was her own like Instagram story or Facebook live feed or whatever. So she posted it. Like she could have taken.
I know.
It
yes, right. Exactly. That's the other thing. It's like, okay, it was a slip of the tongue, but you then went with it. You were like, I meant to say Mein Führer. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I said, Heil Hitler, that'll be fine. It'll play. Just put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, she apparently to try to act in good faith here, she was trying to call COVID lockdowns fascistic, and I guess didn't know how to talk.
Right. I guess, yeah, we should, yeah, right. To be fair or fair enough, we should say the way she explained it was what she meant in her head was by saying Mein Führer, she was implying that the people who enforce COVID restrictions are fascist and that COVID restrictions are fascist. And that's what she was trying to say. So, you guys get it. Let's move into. Go ahead.
Also, her defense, I think that bar's been in and out of the news a lot because the owner's been staying open despite restrictions, and he's been arrested by the cops a bunch. It was a viral video where he got tackled by the cops and hit one of them with his car a couple months ago. I think it's the same bar. And look, in their defense, if I lived in Staten Island, I would really want to go to a bar as well. So,
absolutely, yes. Right. What else you got going on? All right. So honorable mentions here. Our first Daily Dumbass honorable mention is anyone who waited too long to ask for a pardon. Because guess what? The pardon spigot, it's been turned off. And here's the reason why. Matt, play that clip whenever you got it.
The president has been warned, David, by some of his lawyers that if he goes ahead and pardons himself, he could be more vulnerable to civil lawsuits, including from some of those injured in the Capitol riot, because a self-pardon would be seen as an admission that he did something wrong that he would need to be pardoned for. The president is angry. He has not taken that well. And I am told that he is now saying that he doesn't want to see pardons for anybody. So the attitude seems to be, if I can't get a pardon, then nobody else should get one either.
That last line, what is more Trumpian than that? If I can't get a pardon, then nobody else gets one either. It's just so in keeping with his infantile bullshit mentality the whole time. It's a chef's kiss, really.
There was a story last week or week and a half ago that he was considering pardons for Jared and Ivanka. I don't think he actually got around to that yet. But the funny thing was, Don Jr. hasn't even been considered yet, so he's fucking totally fucked. So that's great.
Yeah, but we said that was infantile, and it is. But you know what? The president's not an infant. He's not weak. He's none of that. Okay, and I'll let Hogan Gidley explain the rest of it for me. This is our second honorable mention. Matt, you play this clip.
Social media crackdown. Does he feel emasculated, especially as he heads out of office?
Look, I wouldn't say emasculated. I mean, if the most masculine person I think to ever hold the White House is the President of the United States.
Yeah, Mark, Dwight D. Eisenhower, total pussy. Donald Trump, most masculine person to ever hold the office of U.S. president.
Before we get into the content of this, that's Hogan Gidley, all right, who's a White House spokesman. There's also another Trump guy by the name of Rogan O'Hanley, who's a totally different guy. And I just wanted to say Rogan O'Hanley and Hogan Gidley in the same sentence because why are they all fucking named shit like that?
Right.
These guys, man, it's like there's like a country club baby factory where they pump out like there's like you get to choose like a Scrabble tile of like 10 total syllables and make your name out of it.
Yeah.
I like there's this like meme where like we've all seen like the Ben Garrison paintings and stuff where they draw Trump super buff like with his shirt off and a bunch of chicks drooling over him and all. Like I don't know where that comes from.
Me neither.
I don't know why. I mean, first of all, it's like it's not necessarily it's a quality neutral characteristic that he's super masculine. I don't know, like I'm not saying it's like good or bad or whatever, but it's like weird to see this fucking doughy, you know,
spray tanned.
Yeah.
Fucking yes. Can't walk up a ramp, can't drink water properly, and then they make oil paintings of him like stiff arming a defender in the Heisman pose as he crosses into the goal line of like American Democracy Bowl or whatever the hell is going on and shit like that. It's unreal.
Yeah. So this is my open challenge to the President of the United States to come on Skews and arm wrestle either me or Trey. He can take his pick. So.
Yes, I would love that.
I've also
tried
the Bible trivia too. He hasn't taken me up on that either. So,
well, I'll be honest. Point blank, even Donald Trump might whip my ass at Bible trivia. I have to be honest about it. I would not do well even with that as my opponent. But you know, hey, I don't have a Bible trivia matchup with the President of the United States anywhere on the horizon. So let's move into the bulk of the show here. Let's, like I said, a lot of coup talk. What has happened, Mark? Let's discuss the consequences. And there is an N missing from that portmanteau. We combine coup and consequences. But if you think about it for a minute, saying it with the N in there with our accents, not a good look. We didn't like the way it sounded, so we decided to omit the N and talk about the consequences tonight. Mark, update us on them.
So far, around 120 people have been arrested all over the country. There's the big announcement. The FBI and Justice Department finally held a press conference today. And Matt, if you have that video, they throw it up there because we've been waiting too long to hear from them. It took been a week since 6 days since the coup, and they finally did a press conference. Hit that video if you got it, Matt.
So
the public isn't familiar with is that the FBI, working with the U.S. attorney's offices across the country, and the crux of those being in D.C., we're looking at significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy. Just yesterday, our office organized a strike force of very senior national security prosecutors and public corruption prosecutors. Their only marching orders from me are to build seditious and conspiracy charges related to the most heinous acts that occurred in the Capitol. And these are significant charges that have felonies with prison terms of up to 20 years.
Well, there you have it. I mean, I don't know how you felt about it, but I think a lot of people felt on Wednesday watching it. And again, you could tell that it was their expectation too. The insurgents themselves had this expectation of not just a lack of accountability, but of being lauded as heroes, basically. And I think there was some cynicism about them actually facing real consequences, even after getting into the Capitol. So, I mean, you love to see it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, when they first started arresting people, it was on like trespassing and property crime stuff, which is like the question was whether they're just getting them into the system so they can do superseding indictments later, or whether this was the maximum they're going to get. And that guy's pretty clear that it's not the maximum they're going to get. And if I was them, I would be considering that I'm absolutely fucked, because what happens next is they start going through your text messages and your social media and finding out if you coordinated this attack and what your expectations were from doing it. And there goes intent, there goes conspiracy, and there goes your ass to fucking federal prison for a decade or two. That's
sorry. What do you think the ultimate effect of this round of, arrest and federal charges will be on their movement that they have. And what I mean is, like, do you think that the others, are reading about it on the internet? Like, do you think they'll be martyred in a way from this? Or do you think people will be like, oh shit, we probably better not do any more treason or we're going to go to jail? Like, will it tamp it down, or will it, stoke the fire?
I think like dividing all these people into different like buckets is useful, because you certainly have the people who are willing to die for this shit, right? But they're a very, very small portion. And you look at the rest of them, the people who came out and talked to cameras and gave their name and address in their hometown, like what's her name from Nashville? Remember the lady who got they chased me out and maced me, that lady?
No, she's from Knoxville, actually. That's Elizabeth. But I could see how you would get confused, Mark, because one of the other celebrities who emerged from the coup was also a fellow Tennessean, Zip Tie Man. Everybody remembers Zip Tie Man?
Yeah.
He's from Nashville. Elizabeth is from Knoxville. So, volunteer state, represented in the coup on Wednesday.
So, Zip Tie guy, I think we talked about him on Thursday, but he got identified by people on social media who tracked him down using his name, like the various tags. He had like a Tennessee militia sticker and whatever, and they traced him back through social media, and they found a picture he'd taken with this lady who apparently was with him, who turned out to be his mom. So that's how they found him. They found his
every time.
His mom booked a flight for him, and he took her to the coup with him, and so that's how they found him.
The number of people that have been dropped off by their mom at a coup or a riot or whatever.
Yeah. A bunch of these dudes got turned in by their ex-wives too, which is just fucking hilarious. His mom bought his plane ticket, and they tracked him down through social media and found out that he's a bartender at, you want to guess, Trey? I know you already know, but Kid Rock's bar, of course. Of course he worked at Kid Rock's bar. He's just a militia guy on the side. But these guys are really, really scary. We got some video that like is extremely frightening. That the people in Congress understood it as tremendously scary. There's this quote from this guy named Representative Peter Maher. I'm probably fucking up his name, but he's the guy who took Justin Amash's seat after Amash retired from Congress. And he told Reason that a lot of the Republicans who voted throughout the electoral votes knew the charges were fake, but were scared for the lives of their families. Like, it's just
okay. I just because of the amount of distrust I have for the people who did that, who still voted to object to the results or whatever. Just because of that, I'm almost inclined to call this part bullshit. You know what I mean? Like they're making it like, oh, I had to. I was scared for my family's lives or whatever. It doesn't let them off the hook or anything, but I don't know. I'm still inclined to think that they just did what they did.
See, to my mind, that makes them look worse. Like if you legitimately believe the election was fraudulent and you vote to overturn it, that's one thing. But if you're just a fucking coward who's voting a way you know is false, that's worse to me. One way you're stupid, the other way.
Yeah, but I think they're doing that regardless of the family endangerment part of it. I mean, I'm sure at least a couple of them truly believe it was a fraudulent election, but like Hawley, he doesn't believe that. He's like graduated from Yale Law School or whatever. And so what I'm saying is most of them, I think, did it despite the fact that in their head they didn't believe it to be true. So that's true regardless of them. So whether you add in the part about, oh, I was terrified for my family or not, doesn't change that part of it for me, and they're shitty either way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I know what you're saying, but like Hawley, like if you read these guys closely, we talked about this last week, but like he was never alleging any actual fraud. He was saying that changing the rules to allow universal mail-in balloting was apparently unconstitutional, which like no one really cares about that hyper close reading the Constitution bullshit, except for like conservatives who went to the Ivy Leagues. No one else gives a fuck. We're all just trying to make shit work. And but anyway, he was saying the election should be thrown out because in 1787, the founding fathers couldn't have conceived of universal mail-in balloting, which they absolutely couldn't have, because that includes women and black people voting. So that would have blown their minds regardless. But as to whether or not these dudes were scared, and here's the thing that's happening is like there's a conventional wisdom settling in that these guys are that this mob was all like unruly white trash, just out of control. which is absolutely like some of them were just unruly mobs who got carried away, but a lot of the people went there with a plan, and we don't know what that plan was. And I hope the FBI is able to try and cut it. Because like, check out this video if Matt has it real quick of these people. Dude moving to the front, here with a Those are militia guys moving like a military unit to the front of the line, using the mob
and being waved through along the way and everything. Yeah, come on up here.
Yeah.
But how like coordinated do you think those different groups were in amongst themselves? Do you know what, like, I agree, some people went there with like a plan and fucking IEDs and everything else to, you know, do their thing. But do you think the different sub factions of them who fit that category, do you think they were coordinated in amongst themselves in a larger sense? Or
I think the other one, it's like there's somewhere between 20 and 40,000 people, extra people in Washington D.C. that day for this shit, right? I would say the overwhelming majority of them came there because the president tweeted they should, and they talked themselves on Parler and Gab and gassed themselves up and went out there, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like the 3%ers and the Groypers and your Proud Boys and shit who are a little more coordinated and a little more secretive, and were among them. You know, some people probably did charge in the Capitol spur of the moment, but like, but they were talking to each other the whole time, telling each other, we got to take the Capitol. There's going to be blood. There's going to be broken glass. There is a like, let me read this quote real quick and we'll move on. But there was a this is from a BuzzFeed article talking to cops, the Capitol Hill police that day. Quote, there's a heavily trained group of militia terrorists that attacked us. They had radios. We found them. They had two-way communicators and earpieces. They had bear spray. They had flashbangs. They were prepared. They strategically put 2 IEDs, pipe bombs at 2 different locations. These guys were military trained. And I just want to say that before it gets away from everybody, and we just remember it being like, you know, just some smashed windows.
Yeah, just a bunch of like mall ninja dumbasses who all got together and got heated up and just did a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we'll skip ahead to, okay, so the police presence, the guy said they were heavily trained and militaristic, and that's true, but there's been a bunch of police that were found out to be there
Right.
on the
From
good
all
guy.
over the country.
Yeah. People flew in, and there's been like, there's a bunch of Capitol cops have been suspended for taking pictures and helping show them around. There's off-duty cops from Philadelphia, Seattle, that are under investigation. And Matt found, well, there's an old story we were reading from Mother Jones about QAnon influence on police officers, which is frightening as shit. But you go in any like closed Facebook group for police, and they're trading QAnon stories all the time.
So you were talking about, you know, the cops have said since, like, no, these were people with military training and whatnot, and it was very serious. And like you just said, it was also some off-duty cops on the other side. And that's the part of it, like, part of the mental gymnastics involved with what these people were doing is truly mind-boggling to me, how they could ever just rationalize this in their brain. Because here's a quote from one of the articles we're talking about, from a young black police officer who was on duty that day. So he's like a rookie cop who is a black guy who was at the Capitol that day. And he said that he was on the steps to the rotunda on the east side of the Capitol, engaged in hand-to-hand battles trying to fight the attackers off. He said they were outnumbered 10-1, and described extraordinary scenes in which protesters holding Blue Lives Matter flags launched themselves at police officers. This is a quote. He says, we were telling them to back up and get away and stop, and they're telling us that we're on your side. We're doing this for you. And they're saying that as I'm getting punched in the face by another one. That happened a lot that day. We were getting pepper sprayed in the face by these protesters. I'm not even going to call them protesters, by these domestic terrorists. So you had people there with their Blue Lives Matter flags. And that the Nashville guy earlier, you said he had a Tennessee patch. It was a Blue Lives Matter, a thin blue line Tennessee patch that he had on. So they're all up there with all their Blue Lives Matter stuff, just beating the shit out of the cops, beat one of them literally to death. And like, how in the world do you rationalize something like that in your head, you know?
I mean, a bunch of people on the left have been saying it the whole time, but I think this makes it pretty clear that the Blue Lives Blue Lives Matter flag is not a pro-cop flag. It's an anti-black people flag. And that's the way you got
Right.
it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because again, this cop I'm talking about was a black cop. And I'm not saying this is true for every black cop or every white cop that was there, but the dude taking the selfies and the other cops that went viral for ushering them in or whatever, white cops. And then you hear from the black cops, and it's, we were getting pepper sprayed in the face while they were telling us that, it was for our own good or whatever, basically.
Yeah. You can throw that up, Matt, if you want. So there's off-duty cops flew in. Like so far, there's like 10 or 15 departments that are investigating people New York Times reports that cops from Texas, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire are now under similar scrutiny after Seattle. San Antonio. This is like, there was a hearing last year. Matt dug up footage from it about white supremacists infiltrating police departments, and of course, no one did anything because no one knows how to deal with cops, like out of control cops. Because who do you call, right? We're just sort of stuck in this fucking dilemma where it's like no one wants to go up against police. Like we live in. Even in like Democrat, supposedly liberal controlled cities, no one will stand up to police chiefs. There's no actual accountability for officers in New York, LA, Portland. The list goes on and on. Philadelphia. I don't know.
So I want to, because we should have Silas coming on soon in the next few minutes. And before that, I wanted to make sure and ask you about this part. So there was a coup. Didn't go particularly well. Been a lot of arrests, a lot of federal charges coming for them. We talked about the divisiveness on both sides of the thin blue line or whatever, as far as all that goes. So I'm wondering how you feel about the coming days where this is concerned, because the FBI has warned of armed protests being planned at all 50 state capitals and again in Washington, D.C. Like they're still out there on the internet saying, we're going to do it again, And I'm wondering how you feel about that currently, and then I'll say what I think briefly.
I mean, there's a protest today in Texas State Capitol where a bunch of people stood up with guns, but of course that's a standard protest in Texas. So I don't like it. I mean, it's like there's no protest in Texas where a bunch of people don't show up with ARs. That goes left, right, center, whatever you want to say about it. But the Joint Chiefs today put out just a random press release reminding the troops that your oath is to the Constitution. And this was a little scary to me because there were reports of a bunch of ex-military people in the Capitol coup and the riots, and there have been a bunch of military people saying we should, because you can court-martial people that are retired and take away their pensions and shit. There's been like some agitation for that kind of stuff. And maybe they're just trying to remind people that we can do that, so fucking stay home, stupid. Maybe that's happening, but like, what happens with you got Republicans saying that if there's impeachment, it only makes stuff more violent, which seems ridiculous to me because if Trump's not in office on the 20th to fight to keep him in office, I don't know what people would show up for. That doesn't make sense to me, but I guess some of it depends on what happens with impeachment.
Yeah, and just the sheer logistics of it to me make me not quite as worried about it because they were all centrally located with this one, and it was like the big one in DC, that they were all there for. And when they start like purposefully spreading themselves thin by planning 50 plus different ones, I don't know. I'm skeptical of their efficacy, Mark, at the end of the day. And maybe that, me just being optimistic or telling myself that. But that's how I feel about it. I'm trying not to worry about it too much. Not that it should be dealt with lightly by the people in charge. Of course it shouldn't. I'm just saying,
Before we bring Silas on, I want to do a quick impeachment update because it's relevant to the conversation. So Pelosi's supposedly going to have the votes to impeach Trump tomorrow. That's going to happen tomorrow. Why it took 7 days, I don't know. But that's Pelosi working at Pelosi's fastest speed, being cautious. And Liz Cheney came out today with a more forceful statement than anything Pelosi's ever said, saying it's the biggest act of treachery by President of the United States in history, broke his oath, all that shit. And there's a Republican group now pledging $50 million to defend Republicans who support impeaching Trump, to defend them against whatever attacks he comes. He doesn't have his Twitter anymore. It comes from Trump. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. His megaphone's been taken away. But the stunner is Mitch McConnell leaked on background to the New York Times that he's pleased about impeachment, believing it'll be easier to purge Trump from the GOP. So that's interesting to me. I don't know what game he's playing.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's always a game with him, for
Yeah.
sure. All right, so let's get to Silas here. Our guest tonight is Silas Dwayne House. I said his middle name because it's one of my favorite names on earth, Dwayne. I love all the various spellings of Dwayne. But we got Silas Dwayne House. Silas is an American writer, best known for his novels, but he's also a music journalist, environmental activist, and columnist. House's fiction is known for its attention to the natural world, working class characters, and the plight of the rural place and rural people. He last week had an op-ed in The Atlantic titled "A Warning from a Democrat in a Red State." And we're going to talk about that and more with Mr. Silas House. Bring him on here. Hey, Silas, what's up, man? Good to see you again. Me and Silas know each other.
Howdy.
We've met before. What's up,
Good to
dude?
see
How
you.
you doing?
As good as I can be while the country falls apart, I reckon.
Yeah. So, all right, just so people know, you're from Kentucky. You're originally from a more rural part of Kentucky and now live in Lexington. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I think what you wrote about is even more accurate now in the wake of these coups and everything. Because Mark mentioned earlier that the conventional wisdom that's settling in about the coup and everything is like, oh, it's just a bunch of riled up white trash or whatever. And we all know about Trump in 2016, and it was white trash, rednecks, hillbillies, or whatever that got him elected. And your article is all about the danger, as you put it, of kind of lumping everyone together who's from those places into that same bucket. Obviously, something Mark and I and you know a lot about, being white rural Americans and just getting we all get put into the same box, and it's not a good box to be in, right?
Right. I mean, we're seeing that already, all over social media. The people who storm the Capitol are being called hillbillies and
Right.
rednecks and all that. And I mean, some of them were, but not all of them were.
Right.
And that's what always burns me up. It's like that lets everybody else off the hook, right? Like all
Yeah.
these people who are from all over the United States and from the cities, they just sort of get a free pass, and it all gets blamed on the
Yep.
country people, because everything gets blamed on, poor people, and people assume that everybody from a rural place is poor. So that, I think that's the mentality.
Right. Well, I've had this brought up in so many times over so many interviews over the years, and I've always had to make a point to be like, listen, I'm not saying to you that those people don't exist, or that, a lot of rural Americans or Southerners or whatever are the way you think they are. They are. I'm not trying to act like they're not. All I'm trying to say to you is, A, it's not all of us, and B, there's a lot of that shit in every other state in this country too. And that's my only point.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to write about in the Atlantic piece was, in my home county, 4,883 people voted against Mitch McConnell. That's only 17% of the people who voted in my home county. So I hate that. I wish it was way more.
Right.
But I'm proud of that 4,883 people. And I know what it's like to stand up for something like that when everybody in your whole world is saying you're a baby killer if you don't vote for Mitch McConnell. That's the number one thing they say. You are a socialist. They talk about that like it's such a terrible thing. You are everything that's wrong with America if you don't vote for Mitch. And they'll even say, how much they don't like Mitch, but at least he is for all these things that the church especially keeps telling them they should be for. So, I mean, it's complicated in one way, and in a way it's not complicated at all, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I know so many good people who fall into that trap of thinking that they have to vote this way on one issue. It drives me crazy.
How much you just mentioned it. I always thought that, because I grew up very rural county in Tennessee, and I always thought, you mentioned earlier, it's like the church is telling them these are the things you're supposed to support. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit, how much you I don't want to say blame God, but you know what I mean? How much of it comes down to the church's doctrine and the influence the church has in these places that then bleeds over into their political views and whatnot, like the extent to which you think that is a factor.
Well, I always say that, religion has done so much good for the world, and religion has done so much harm for the world. And so I think all I can base it on is where I'm from, that little community that I know, my family. And I know that it always comes back to that they have to get rid of legalized abortion. They have to take rights away from all of us gay people. They have to make sure that their guns aren't taken away. That's what it's all about. Abortion,
Right.
gays.
Yeah.
And has a real orchestrated threat against their gun. That's always the thing. Let's put prayer back in school. I've heard, my whole life, no concept of a separation of church and state. And that's certainly something you hear in the church all the time, is that everything that's wrong in America is because, they took prayer out of schools. And just that sort of rhetoric it's just constant. It gets rammed down your throat every day. And even people that don't go to church will say that and are part of it. It's not only the church, it's the culture too.
Why do you think, and I know Mark has a question. Sorry, Mark, I'll give you some time on the floor here in a minute, but following up on that, why do you think that everything you just said, which again, in my experience, also completely true, why do you think that so far outweighs to a lot of these people things like, making sure your Mamaw's medicine is paid
Yeah.
for, making sure that your nephew who's on pills is taken care of and not just thrown into jail, making sure that whether the factory comes back or not, you've got somewhere to work or you have some money in your pocket so you don't have to worry. These progressive policies that would
Yeah.
absolutely benefit these people. Why do you think that it seems to be so tilted in the other direction to all the things you just named a minute ago that they care about?
I don't know, except that I know that, well, I guess the only thing I can think of is that those are the things that the politicians keep saying are important, because they know that's what can divide us the easiest. And so they home in on those key issues, and they just keep on and on and on, and it comes up all the time. And it's the culture war. And I think those are the main points of the culture war. And I that's why I get so frustrated, because I do know so many good people who really do care about their mammals having the medicine they need, and not wanting people to go broke trying to have health care and things like that. But the preachers keep pounding home what the politicians say, and it just gets so tangled up in the whole culture that it's overpowering. I guess I don't know. All I can do is guess on that.
Right.
But I also think that a lot of that are things that are directly affecting them in a different way. It's like they'll be all for healthcare if they suddenly get in a medical emergency, but they can always relate to not having the gun taken. They can always get on this sanctimonious "I'm a better Christian than you" thing. That's easy to fall into.
Right. Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's like, it's kind of like at a leadership level for that side. I feel like what you just said is sort of also played out with a lot of the Republican Congress people last week during the coup, meaning a lot of them that plan to be on Trump's side and object to the vote and whatnot. As soon as like they were in a situation where they were like, oh shit, I might be in danger because of this.
Right.
A lot of them, change their minds all of a sudden. And I think you're right. There's like a lot of times it comes down to being personally affected by something for that person to understand it.
Right. Yeah. One thing that I looked at in the Atlantic piece was just the way that in a piece before the one that we're talking about now, I wrote about the Postal Service and how much rural people depend on the postal service, to get their medicine. I mean,
Yeah.
To have access to the kinds of stores that people in the cities have, right out their door, the mail supplies, things like that. But because Trump just kept hammering home this notion of, the mail service was evil, all that, well, then people turned against the postal service. I think what frustrates me so much and makes me so angry when people down home do that is that I know they're not stupid people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody always goes back to. They'll say they're so stupid, they're so ignorant. Well, what's troubling to me is that they're not. Most of them know exactly what they're doing. I could accept it a lot better if they didn't know what they were doing, but they know what they're voting for, and that is what I find especially troubling. Now, with that said, I want to point out, I'm talking about the people who are voting, who are apostles for Trump and McConnell, and keep these awful people in office like Rand Paul. He's the worst. God, I can't stand him.
Yeah.
And but they're not dumb people. The vast majority are not. I mean, my people are not stupid people.
Right.
And that's why it's why it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, like you raise a good point that not all people in Kentucky deserve to be dumped in the same boat, because at least one of them beat Rand Paul up, and that was his neighbor. So but like you point out, like everyone being seen as a monolith is so like weird. Like just talking about the coup protests, a few people I saw arrested. There were like 2 CEOs, one high up attorney for an insurance company. The lady who died, RIP, she owned her own business and had been on a boat for Trump boat parades. Like, these aren't poor people, and you know that definitionally, because people flew in for this. They had days off and they had money to travel and they had money for expensive guns and tactical gear and shit. But you point out, like speaking of which, like your Atlantic article, you talked about how the hashtag Fuck Kentucky was trending, but like, don't people realize that includes Breonna Taylor and her family and the people that were in streets in Louisville all summer? It's very weird.
Right. And and people always say to me, when I say just what I said, they'll say, but there are a lot of dumb people there. Well, there's a lot of dumb people all over America, or I mean, obviously, or we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now, But I think that's what it always comes back to me is this generalizing is real dangerous. And as much as I myself slip into it, I mean, I think it's pretty hard not to do that when you're talking about these things. But I think we have to keep reminding ourselves of those 4,883 people in Laurel County, Kentucky, who stood up and said, no, I'm not going to vote for this kind of behavior. I'm voting against it. And I just, I want to stand up for them and say they are not stupid. They are not mean people. And they're Kentuckians, they're rural people, they're working class people. So let's not lump everybody in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Couldn't agree with you more. Silas, give us a, I mean, if you want to, whatever you like, let people know how they can find your stuff, plug yourself. Tell us what you got going on, how they can look you up, check out what you're doing.
Well, I've been writing for The Atlantic here lately through the pandemic. So if you just go to theatlantic.com and type in my name, you can find all my pieces there. My website's silas-house.com. And I've published 7 books, so anywhere that sells good books will have them. So look for them there, I hope.
That's awesome.
Right on. I wanted to add, so it's your middle name, Dwayne. Yeah. Which way do you spell it? Because I'll tell you my favorite spelling afterward.
Mine is unusual. It's Dwane.
Okay, I like that. Dwayne. I like Duwayne. Duwayne.
Yeah.
Duwayne. Silas Duwayne. That's I don't know. I've always been partial to the name Dwayne in all its various incarnations.
I went to school with a bunch of Dwaynes. Some of them were D-Waynes.
Yeah.
Some of them were Duwaynes. Yeah.
Right on. Well, listen, Silas, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, man. And I hope I see you in Lexington before too long. So. Whenever it becomes legal to do shit in public again, I'll see you there, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Silas.
See you, buddy.
See you.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
I do.
Always, you know.
I would recommend, just to play it one more time, a warning from the red state. Democrats need to see beyond electoral map to acknowledge that people are pushing for liberal ideas, even the reddest of areas. That's from January 3rd. That's Silas's last article in the Atlantic. It's great.
All right, so we're I say try because, as y'all know, we had some issues with the graphics and stuff up top. But we're gonna try to move into some comments and whatnot if we can. I want to tee y'all up a little bit. How pessimistic or optimistic are you guys about the coming days where coups are concerned? Because I know y'all know friend of the show, Diamond Drew Morgan, is very well, I don't know. He's pretty pessimistic. He thinks that that there's going to be a lot of shit goes down in the coming days. He's like, I'm not saying that his whole thing is, I'm not saying they're going to win, like that they're going to overtake the government. I'm not saying that, but I very, very much anticipate that a lot more shit is going to go down and people will get hurt and that type of thing. So where do you fall on that spectrum, Mark?
Look, you will never go broke in America betting on mass shooting happening soon, right? That's just never going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not predicting anything. I'm saying it's easy to say because it's probably going to happen eventually. If your bet doesn't come true this week, it will the next week after or the week after that. And Corey actually made a funny joke recently that the pandemic's been really hard on mass shooters, which is hard because there aren't any masses, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a bummer for them.
Yeah. Stochastic terrorism happens constantly in America, lone wolf type shit, and you never sometimes we lie to ourselves about how coordinated it is. Like there's a famous example, everybody pretended Timothy McVeigh acted alone. Maybe he did, but there was a lot of shit no one actually bothered to look into because he didn't want to think about it. But as far as what the outcome is, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple more events where 3 or 4 or 5 people get killed, like there were at the Capitol last week. I don't think they'll make it into the Capitol again. I think the National Guard's been called up and they're on high alert now. And these dudes pissed the FBI off, which is not a position you want to be in.
So in the massive comments flying by over here to my right, I saw one from Gene Vale that said, I don't think it's going to stop after the 20th. And I think that's fair. I feel like, and Amy Tony here says, I'm pretty effing pessimistic, and those two are related. I feel like we have kind of been almost presupposing or taking it for granted, like what's going to happen over the next 9 days, between now and the inauguration. But as Gene points out, well, who the hell says it's going to stop on the 20th? And that's fair to bring up too, I think.
Look, the way I think about things is things are probably going to get worse in some ways and better in other ways, and that's the way life goes on this planet. So our political situation is pretty shitty. It could get better fairly. I really think a new Voting Rights Act will cure a lot of our ills and did deflate the temperature a lot, because everyone had to get more sane to get elected. I think if you put impeachment up right now in front of the Senate, you need 17 Democrats, 17 Republicans, assuming every Democrat votes. I think you might get close, man. And if that happens, you might break you might be able to sever the Trump movement from the Republican Party.
Well, good timing from producer Matt here, because directly related to what you were just saying, and we talked about this on the last episode too. Anna Ledford Anafi, I hope I got that right, Anna, says, you also won't go broke in America betting on the inaction from Congress, which is what I was trying to say last time. I know that they could theoretically do it. I just have little to no faith that they actually will. And like you were just saying, are you feeling any better about it now than you did then, or what?
I mean, the way I read Liz Cheney and Mitch McConnell coming out today is they're telling Nancy Pelosi to hurry the fuck up because they have their own interests. You forget, so if we remember all the way back to a week and a half ago, before the Georgia elections, right?
All the way back to 10 days ago or whatever, which, I mean, yes, 5 years worth of shit has happened in those 10 days.
Yeah. So Trump dumped a turd in Mitch McConnell's lap with the $2,000 checks, right?
Right, yeah.
And McConnell rules his caucus with an iron fist. If McConnell could dunk on Trump and try to fucking crush his influence in Republican politics to the point where people go back to being more afraid of Mitch McConnell than Donald Trump, that would be a huge win for him. And rounding up enough votes for impeachment might successfully accomplish that. And McConnell just got elected. He has 6 years. He's a minority leader. He has tens and 50s of millions of dollars in his personal pack to throw around to save either crush senators or help them. All he needs to do is get rid of Donald fucking Trump. So remember in Goodfellas when Joe Pesci thinks he's about to get made and he walks in that room and sees the plastic sheeting, right?
Yeah.
I think the Republican Party is trying to find that moment for Donald Trump to a certain degree.
Well, a couple things, as we mentioned last week, there's also been a lot of like, they're puppet masters, I think. Big business. Well, I've been like big business influence, coming out and directly saying this motherfucker needs to be removed. And obviously the only reason they're doing that is because it's gotten to a point where they're like, oh, this might cost us money if this shit keeps going,
Yeah.
But I think that happening could also be an influence on what we're talking about now, about them actually doing something about it, also. But let's read Robin's comment here. Robin Floyd says Congress needs to expel the seditionists. Like,
they're talking about she's talking about
among Congress people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, my bad. I thought you were saying like all the regular ass seditionists who were up there. I was like, okay, I'm with you, but to what? Like to the moon, to the like, where are we going to expel them to? But no, you mean the people in Congress who participated, like Cruz and Holly and them. And yeah, I agree completely.
I mean, here's the thing: like everybody hates Ted Cruz. This is not a partisan thing. So if Texas has a Republican governor, they could expel Ted Cruz and get another Republican instantly. Who'd be a solid conservative vote, who wouldn't be as annoying and have as punchable a face. So I think they might be tempted to do that because Ted Cruz is especially annoying even to his colleagues. And I will quote none other than Lindsey Graham from it was a moment, I think in 2011, 2012, when Ted Cruz was trying to ride the rodeo bull that was the Tea Party movement. And he did a performative filibuster that wasn't going to affect anything to call the rest of his Republican colleagues sellouts and cowards for raising the debt ceiling and crushing the global economy to hurt Obama. And Lindsey Graham, in response to that, said, if Ted Cruz was murdered on the floor of the Senate and you held the trial in the Senate, you would not get one vote to convict.
Yeah. Was Al Franken that said something like, I like Ted Cruz more than pretty much anybody. And I hate Ted Cruz. Yeah, you're right. Like, seems like no one likes him. So, yeah, fucking jettison that motherfucker.
He had a couple of staff members resign in protest today. No one likes the motherfucker. No one likes him. I mean, if you look at pictures of him trying to kiss his kids, they recoil at his touch. He's an extremely unlikable person.
Yvonne Payne says Biden and Harris should go to Vegas and get inaugurated in secret. Yeah, yeah. But what do you think? I mean, I know what Yvonne's getting at. A lot of people are worried about the inauguration itself, like the safety of Biden and Harris, given what just happened. Where are you on that particular topic?
Well, there was apparently a briefing last night where the FBI and DHS briefed House Democrats about the current state of the threat. And there were three big warnings having to do with terrorist attacks coming up. They didn't get too specific. But one thing that happened after that was that a bunch of congressional Democrats requested that there be metal detectors at the inauguration, that even new members of Congress have to go through them to make sure they're not going to assassinate the president and vice president. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that, and again, I feel like I tend to come across as the more optimistic one on this show. But I feel like this also, given what just happened last Wednesday and how that all went down, I have to think that the already insanely high level of security you would have at a presidential inauguration will be amped up even more now. And I know you got bad faith actors on the inside or whatnot. I get that, but there's going to be such a higher level of scrutiny and everything given to it now than there even would have been to begin with, that I don't know. I think they'll have it under control, personally. It won't be the shit show that it was last Wednesday, I don't think.
I don't think any large group of people is going to be able to get within a mile of the inauguration without being strafed by an Apache helicopter. I mean, like, forget ideology or whatever. These people embarrassed the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. They fucking embarrassed them. Like, somebody who's a domestic intel analyst got yelled at by a bunch of supervisors over because it wasn't communicated up the chain forcefully enough that it was going to be this dangerous. Somebody's not going to get a raise or promotion because of this. They're fucking pissed. So.
Yeah. I wanted to ask while we're waiting on Matt to find another one, something I was going to bring up to you earlier. Help me understand, insofar as you understand it. I've heard people say, we're talking about Trump getting impeached for the second time and everything earlier, and the possibility of that leading, one of the consequences of that could be that it means that he cannot run again, because obviously there's been a bunch of chatter about him running again in 2024 and whatnot. What will you explain to me and to people listening that don't know how that actually works? Like, what has to happen for that? Because that would be great. I would love that if we ensured that he literally cannot run again. What would have to happen for that to come into play?
There is, I think it's in the 14th Amendment, where there's some sort of clause you can invoke where you can ban, like Pelosi invoked the 14th in her statement about impeachment a couple of days ago, and some people read it as an implicit threat to new members of Congress. They're going to be voted out if they don't shut the fuck up and fall in line, because you can expel people from Congress, like we talked about earlier. But you can invoke this. There's a certain clause when you do impeachment, you can ban someone from running for office going forward. I'm not sure exactly how that works. You're going to have to ask.
Okay, so when you are impeaching someone, you have to make the effort to include or invoke this clause, this specific clause you're talking about, and then that's what brings that into effect, that it would stop him from running in the future.
I think so.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, I know you're not a fucking congressional lawyer or whatever, but you're smart, Mark.
If I'd known to read that point, I would. But there does exist a way to do it. I don't think it's a default thing that happens with impeachment. I think there has to be something else invoked and voted on by Congress, but they can include that in the impeachment provisions. Because I don't think anyone who would vote for impeachment would not vote for that, because they all want to be president themselves. Why wouldn't they move someone out of the way if they could?
I briefly saw a hater comment fly by a minute ago that said, "Go live in China. That's what Biden's bringing to you." That comment was from, I shit you not, Mark, Wanda Whiteman. Wanda White Man said we should just move to China if we're excited about what Joe Biden's bringing to the country. So,
all right, here we go. Here's the clause in the 14th Amendment. No person shall be elected, blah, yada, 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 or holding the office, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or officer of the United States, who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid. So if you convict Trump for having instigated a rebellion,
okay,
then
it's the specific charge is what it is. It would have to specifically be insurrection or whatever that he got charged with that would invoke that. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Aim it moved. Damn it. It flipped again. As I've explained to y'all before, what me and Mark see of the comments is they pop up like 6 at a time and then fly by very quickly. But somebody I saw telling Wanda to go live in Pakistan. Bill Barry says Trump won't run again. His daughter will be running. Yes, Mark. What about a Trump dynasty? How you feel about that?
I don't know. Probably, like I think probably governor of Florida is more her ambition, something like that. But I don't think this final taste, it feels like she's been pretty embarrassed and doesn't like this much contentiousness around her. Like, I don't think she likes the abuse and spotlight the same way her dad does. The fight of it, the pig and shit likes it kind of thing that her dad enjoys.
It's also been talked about before, and I think we talked about it briefly, but I think that, like, I know how stupid this sounds, but you think about the type of people they are. The implications this has had for her social life. Do you know what I mean? Like, meaning that they will never again be accepted into those same circles of like high society, cultured, fucking moneyed people because they're persona non grata now, which I think that I don't know anything about how those people operate. Maybe I'm wrong about even saying that, but I think if that was the truth, then that probably really bothers Ivanka a lot, I would imagine.
The thing, the perverse thing about their fucking dynasty or their succession episode is she had the life her father wanted. Like, all he wanted his whole life was to earn respect of like rich people, and they all thought he was a dumb fucking hick scumbag slumlord from Queens. He built an office building in Manhattan. No one cared. He got his own TV shows. People still thought he was trash. He thought if he get elected president, they'd finally respect him. Here's the thing, Ivanka grew up moneyed. She wasn't considered new money. She was on Gossip Girl. She married into the Kushner family, who's old money. Her fucking her sister-in-law was Carly Kloss. She had her own fashion brand, right? She was living Donald's dream.
Dude,
he ruined for her. So unless she's going to backtrack and go the other route and try to get revenge on the world that scorned her like her fucking dad did, I don't know what her play is, because she doesn't seem that motivated by spite like he is, but who knows?
Buddy, you just laid it down right there. Every bit of that. What's up? And with that, let's go out on it. We'll be back in 48 hours for Thursday's edition. This has been a fun show. Thank you all very much for joining us. This is Evening Skews. We'll see you next time.